What is going on, everybody? This is D and Brad with the Spoiler Alert Network, and we're back with another Top 5 discussion, the series where we pick a topic and pick our top 5 favorites from that topic and discuss. So I'm back with Showtime and Dirt Sheet again, and today's topic is video game sequels. Any video game series that has more than one title, so we're going to pick our favorite sequel out of the bunch. So without any further ado, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. For my number 5, it's actually been on one of my previous lists, it is Infamous 2. So the sequel to the original Infamous game. The Infamous series has 3 games total. I know by far Infamous 2 is probably my favorite, just because you could use your old save data, continue the game where you left off basically with the same abilities. But basically everything about Infamous 2, a little bit of an improvement on the previous game. The combat system is improved, as well as the powers, the upgrades, and new abilities that you can get. So I mean, just overall, it did pretty much everything that a sequel should do. Takes the formula from the original game, improves on it. So it's the definition of a good video game sequel to me. Showtime?
My number 5 was also on a previous list, and it is Little Big Planet 2, which a lot of what Brad's saying, it took every mechanic of Little Big Planet 1 and built on it to make a better game for Little Big Planet 2. There's not no backsteps. Like a lot of games, when you reach into the sequel territory, they fail in a lot of aspects where the original game succeeded. Like it might lose the vibe that the first game had, or it might lose a lot of the meaning or a lot of the subliminal messages and the subtext and the theme of the game just for the sake of making more money. But Little Big Planet 2 just builds on everything that Little Big Planet 1 was about, while being better in every way, especially the creation tools in Little Big Planet 2 and the gameplay mechanics, stuff like that. Little Big Planet 2 is just one of the best sequels of all time. What do you got?
So my number 5 is actually WWE 2K22 for a couple of reasons, but one of them being a kind of a, well, I guess technically not an unorthodox reason, but the biggest reason is because of the improvement from the previous game. I don't know when you stopped playing 2K games, but
2K15.
Okay, 2K20 was hot garbage. One of the worst, if not the worst 2K game ever produced. It was buggy. It did not have a great roster. It was not good. There was literally nothing good about it. People on it all the time. It was so bad. It was so bad that WWE did make another one for 2 years. So, but yeah, so 2K22 came out and it improved vastly. Was it perfect? No 2K game is. It's not possible apparently. But 2K22 was much smoother. The mechanics were much better. They overhauled the entire control scheme, so it was honestly a little simpler control-wise. The roster was expanded enormously. There's so many playable superstars in that game. It is absolutely ridiculous. And then that's without any of the DLC or expansion passes. But it's just, all in all, it is the definition of a quality sequel. It is not perfect by any means. It is not the best sequel to ever exist, but it is head and shoulders above its predecessor, which I guess is not saying much because 2K20 was absolute horse shites. It was awful, god awful. I'm not going to sit here and run a smear campaign on it, but I want to. But that 2K22 is my number 5. Like, it was a good game. It was fun to play. Kind of a breath of fresh air, but it's kind of sad that it took them 6 games to put a good one out. So, yeah. Brad, what's next?
So my number 4 favorite video game sequel is, this was a close one, it is Batman Arkham City.
Ooh, good pick.
So originally I was going to say Arkham Knight, but just because there was more you could do, I guess. But looking back, out of the 4 Arkham games,
4 of them?
Well, Arkham Origins, it was made by a different studio, but yeah, it's still technically in the same universe. Looking back, I had to compare the story, the combat, the gameplay, all the stuff you could do. So ultimately, thinking about it even further, I'd say Arkham City won out on that. So it's obviously in the Arkham universe of the video games, which are some of the best superhero games to ever game ever. But they took everything that made the first Arkham Asylum great and expanded upon it. Instead of being trapped on an island, you're actually in a wider map. You're in Gotham City, and you get to glide around and basically felt like you were Batman. And they added new gadgets, new gameplay mechanics, like I said, new boss battles. It had arguably one of the best video game boss battles of all time with Mr. Freeze. Like I said before with my last pick, it was everything that a sequel should be. That's really about all there is to it. Showtime?
My number 4 is Assassin's Creed Revelations, and this game was a sequel in the middle of the series where it's wrapping up both the story of Ezio and Altair. So this is what, the 4th game in the series? So at this point, Ezio already had 2 games about him with Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood, and Altair had Assassin's Creed 1, and then Revelations came and wrapped up both those stories at the same time. So from a storytelling perspective, to wrap up 2 fantastic characters within one game and tell their stories to a conclusive end, while also building on the gameplay mechanics from Assassin's Creed 1, which was admittedly very repetitive in the beginning. And Assassin's Creed 2 built on that and got better. And then Assassin's Creed Brotherhood built on that and added more. And then Revelations just built on that even more. For the story that they were telling at the time, it couldn't have got any better. But Revelation was as good as it can get for the gameplay mechanics that they already had. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I get what you're saying.
And the way that it, of course, wrapped up the story of Ezio and Altair was just perfect storytelling to me. What do you got next?
So my number 4 pick is Saints Row the Third.
Oh, where the games got shitty. Go ahead.
Saints Row 4 was where it
Nope.
just took a poop for me.
Nope.
I like Saints Row the Third. Now, granted, it was probably for the wrong reasons. It's the generation of me coming out. The graphics were superb. It's the main reason why I liked it. The graphics, the map, and the combat mechanics. Saints Row 2 probably had the better story. But Saints Row the Third, if you ignore the story completely, it's a tremendous game. Just go brain dead and you'll have fun. But that's what it was. Like one of the cheat codes turned the entire map into zombies, like a zombie apocalypse, and it was one of my favorite things to do. Would get on and I'd put that cheat in, and it'd turn every NPC into a zombie, and you just like, good luck, buddy. But it was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun playing it. I've played it several times because it's a real quick game. The story's really, really quick, but then there's a lot of miscellaneous tasks and missions that you can do, or just rook. You could just do terroristy stuff and cause havoc and chaos, and it was a lot of fun, and my smooth brain really enjoyed it. So you.
Saints Row 1 and 2 are true Saints Row games, and Saints Row 3 and 4 are just a different tier. They're different. They could all be Saints Row games, but Saints Row 1 and 2 should exist in their own universe. And Saints Row 3 and 4 can exist in their own universe. They're fun games. They should not be Saints Row games.
I would say that Saints Row 4 shouldn't exist at all. But
Saints Row 4 is not... It's not that bad, but it's just a superhero simulator.
aliens take over the planet and blow it up.
And then it's all revealed to be a simulation.
Anyways, Brad, you're not judging me, so you get to go with number 3 now.
I enjoyed Saints Row 4.
Wrong!
No, I actually enjoyed it. Anyway.
Saints Row 1 and 2 are more realistic, and Saints Row 3 is just where it starts getting over
I
the
don't
top.
play games for realism. I play games to escape, and that's what you can do in Saints Row the Third.
Whatever.
All right, Brad, what's your number 3?
My number 3 favorite video game sequel is Assassin's Creed 2. There's a few more games in the series that I like as well as sequels, but at the time when this came out, it was just extraordinary. Like he was saying, the original Assassin's Creed game was very repetitive. You had the same tailing missions and eavesdropping missions and all that stuff, assassination missions. It was all the same in the first game pretty much, but still a decent game. So they took all that and they added different gameplay elements and improved on the overall, obviously the graphics, combat system, and especially the story with Ezio, who is one of probably the best Assassin's Creed characters of all time. And then as the series went on, I mean, they just kept improving each game until a certain point. Now it's just a Dark Souls Witcher clone, I guess. That being said, at the time of it releasing, Assassin's Creed 2 was probably my favorite sequel of all time. It's still got the best story of the Ezio trilogy, in my opinion, so that's why I made my list. So that being said, I will pass it on to Showtime for his number 3.
So my number 3 is Tony Hawk's Underground. And this is a little bit of a different kind of sequel because, well, the games don't really have a flowing story from Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1, 2, 3, 4, Underground, Underground 2, American Wasteland, blah, blah, blah. But the first 4 games have a very similar feel to them. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1, 2, 3, and 4 feel very, very contained, very professional. And then Tony Hawk's Underground flips it. So Underground is a very real look at skateboarding, I think. A more real than the previous games, where you're a kid in New Jersey and you have to work to get signed to a company, a board company, and try to get shoe deals and win competitions and get noticed and all this fun stuff. And it's like, it's so much more realistic than the previous games where you're just a pro. You just start off a pro and you could just go do whatever. And it's just so much better, in my opinion, from that realistic standpoint.
More immersive, I guess.
Yeah, I guess you would say immersive. And I still hate Eric Sparrow to this day. He was the villain of the game. Like, you go and you like make this pro tape to impress the pros to get signed to a board company, and he steals the tape and nobody ever sees it, and then you end up in jail in Moscow. He's a piece of shit. Eric Sparrow can go die. That's what I got.
So my number 3 is Fallout 4. But Fallout 4 is just incredible. I wouldn't have played it if not for him. So he gets partial credit for my pick. Even my list isn't even my own. But the map is huge, excluding the DLC that you can get with it. That adds so much more gameplay to it. You can just wander around and do random and battle, fight all kinds of things, and you can enter vaults and schools and all kinds of buildings, ruin cities, akin to like dungeon crawling and other RPG games. And it's just, there's so many miscellaneous quests, so many outlandish and weird characters that you meet, and it's so fun for everybody in different ways because like the morality of your character depends on how you want to play, and like the skill tree, the perks, even weapons. Like I've done playthroughs where I went straight melee. I've done playthroughs where I've done straight energy weapons. There's just so much and so many possibilities. The game is so large, and not saying that the previous ones are bad or don't have a lot to do, but Fallout 4 just has so much that you can do in terms of the gameplay and even just random things that you can do, which is why it's my number 3. My next 3 picks are all probably easy, and everybody here probably knows what any of them are, but it's the same 3 game series I've been playing for the past 8 years. Brad, what you got?
Speaking of games being played for years and years and years, my number 2 is Skyrim, Elder Scrolls 5.
Honestly, I thought that'd be his number 1.
Nope, not quite. So Elder Scrolls does actually take place in like a chronological order. So you got Morrowind and Oblivion. Actually, you got Arena, Arena, Daggerfall, Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim. A lot of people will tell you that Oblivion is the superior Elder Scrolls game, but in my personal opinion, I prefer Skyrim, just judging by...
Did you play Oblivion?
Yeah, after Skyrim though, so that's probably my mistake. So based solely on my, hours of playtime, Skyrim is the clear winner of the Elder Scrolls series for me. Just judging by the fact that it is over 10 years old now and people are still playing it almost daily. That just says a lot about a video game in general, but as a sequel, I mean, it's kind of basic. You're, the chosen one, and, the story's kind of straightforward and sometimes predictable, but...
Predictable doesn't always mean bad.
Yeah, not always. And just the size and scope of all the side quests and Daedric quests that you can do, the DLCs, obviously, were excellent. The Dawnguard and Dragonborn. And then you have, obviously, the modding community, which really kept the game going, in my opinion, for this long. So there's just so much stuff. You can find a random mod to add a whole new quest line. You can turn Skyrim into a totally different game with mods. So, I mean, it's one of the most versatile games that I've ever seen. So that's why it's on my list of sequels and just list of favorite video games in general. So, showtime.
My number 2 is Super Mario 64.
You said it like you're so defeated. like he feels like you're in a toxic relationship with this game.
I feel like I'm beating this game into the ground. It is so good, and it is technically a sequel because there was Super Mario Brothers 2, Super Mario Brothers 3, Paper Mario, Dr. Mario, Mario Tennis, Mario Golf, Mario Kart, another Mario Kart. And then Super Mario 64, which is the perfect game. It's so good. Perfect level design, perfect soundtrack, perfect difficulty curve, perfect everything. The game is the perfect sequel for its place in the linear history of Mario, if that makes sense. Like the way I'm talking about the difficulty curve going slowly up, it's like the same way the progress of the Mario world is. Like, it just perfectly goes up. So right where Super Mario 64 is, it is perfect for that time frame. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like it's lagging behind any of the other N64 games. It's not like it's way ahead of the other N64 games, difficulty-wise or complexity-wise. It's just perfect for the time period when it was released. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. It's just... God, it's so f***ing good. If you have not played Super Mario 64, please just f***ing do it. Or watch me do it. I did it on the channel like 12 times. Go watch it. It's so good. What do you got, bud?
So my number 2 is probably what a lot of people expected to be my number 1, but it's just because I had to pick one game from the series. It's Mass Effect 3. If this was the top 5 series, it'd obviously be number 1. But
it was.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we did that.
Yeah, we did that.
So, but the reason Mass Effect 3 is number 2 is because, in my opinion, the Mass Effect trilogy only needed gradual improvements from game to game. It didn't need, there was no sequel that was released that needed to be head and shoulders above the previous one. It was just gradual improvements, and that is true with Mass Effect 3, except for the initial ending, but that got fixed in a DLC patch. That's, I've already ranted about that. But everything about the game, from the combat mechanics to the difficulty settings to the graphics to, the power wheels and leveling system, dialogue options, everything about it was increased just enough to make it noticeable that it was a quality sequel. But I think that my personal favorite thing in Mass Effect 3 is the fact that it improved on the one thing that, in my opinion, the Mass Effect games needed to improve on, which was the difficulty settings. So for Mass Effect 1, Mass Effect 2, Mass Effect 3, now mind you, I play all these on Nightmare because I've played them a million times. So every playthrough I play through is on the hardest difficulty now. But Mass Effect 1 and 2, especially for people just breaking into RPG third-person shooter games, there was always, casual or narrative-based difficulty settings. But for people who were inexperienced with this, I feel like it still provided a bit of a challenge at times to them. So it was kind of like they had the right idea, but the execution was poor. and then you'd start getting into the higher settings of difficulty, and much like they should, they would increase, but it'd be like almost like leaps. So like, okay, if you've never played a third-person shooter before, play it on casual, play Mass Effect 1 and Mass Effect 2 on casual, but it's still going to give you a hard time if you're not sure what you're walking into. Mass Effect 3 had a narrative setting. Game is cake. Literally, it is as advertised. Narrative setting says it is for narrative purposes only, for players who are just focused on the story. Minimal combat difficulty. And then there's like the beginner, you know, and then the mid-tier, and then the hard and the nightmare. And as you go, it gets harder and harder. Like, I've been played Mass Effect for literally years of my life, and Nightmare, like, I still have to be cautious when I play in Nightmare mode, which is what I look for. If I want to play a game on the hardest difficulty, which is very rare, I want it to be challenging, especially the games that I've played before, because otherwise, what's the point? So, Mass Effect 3 was just a stellar, it was a stellar sequel, in my opinion. There wasn't a whole lot that needed to be improved, but everything that did need to be improved was. So, Brad, what you got?
Alright, so my number one video game sequel is Red Dead Redemption 2. So Red Dead 2 is a Western sandbox style game, which is actually within the chronological order is a prequel to Red Dead 1. So Red Dead Redemption 2 takes everything that you love and everything that is amazing and excellent about the first Red Dead Redemption and improves on it, dials it up to like 11 in my opinion. So obviously the graphics, because it came out several years after the first one, the game looks amazing. An improvement on the storyline, I think it was a very, I guess I would call it a roller coaster, because I felt every emotion in the story of Red Dead 2. It hit hard, it was funny at times, you know. And a lot of like I said before, a lot of the mechanics from the original game were returned, or they brought in new mechanics and they improved the old ones. Like the hunting was a lot better in this one, in my opinion. Just the immersiveness of like walking through the different areas and towns. You could talk to the townspeople, and then your main base of operations was like a campsite, because you're in a gang, you're just a band of outlaws. So you get to walk around the camp and you get some of the best dialogue interactions, and you get to know these characters and who they are, what they're like. Some of them you like, some of them you love, some of them you hate, and some of the ones you come to enjoy. I mean, spoiler alert, you know, some of them don't make it through the story, and you actually feel that. That's just how impactful and deep this game is for me. So I think that obviously is exactly how you should do a sequel. Improve on everything that made the first one great, and have a deeply emotional, impacting story. With the fistfights, the brawls, the hunting, gunfights, fishing, I mean, everything about it was great for me. That's about all I have to say. Red Dead 2 is amazing.
My number one is Fallout 4, and everything the dirt sheet said about it before is just completely true. I've still gotten hours and hours and hours of enjoyment out of it. I'm up to over like 200 hours. I haven't played it since like January. But in a month, I got over 200 hours of playtime on it. When I quit my job back in the middle of January, and by the end of January, I had 200 hours of playtime. So I just played the shit out of it on PC. I bought it on PC. I played it before on Xbox. And then I bought it on PC. I downloaded mods for the first time. And I have like Captain America's shield. And I just run around and bash people in the face with it. And I love that. That's just the best. And I just have so many mods that I can do so much shit with. And like mods change everything. Like settlement building is a big part of Fallout 4. And you can download mods that let you delete everything. You can delete everything in the settlement. You can scrap the floor, you can scrap the world, you can fall into a white void into space if you want to. It's fine. And I mean, that's not saying how it's better than the other games previous to it, but that's just how good Fallout 4 is, because I got like 200 hours in it, like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So recently, after I shut down Fallout 4, back at the end of January, I played Fallout 1, which is a very different game. Fallout 1 is a turn-based game. Fallout 2 is a turn-based game. Fallout Tactics is half turn-based, half squad-based, half real-time. I don't even know. Fallout Tactics is wild. I'm playing that right now. It's terrible. Not terrible, but it's difficult. It is a difficult game to get used to. I played Fallout 3 years ago. I played Fallout New Vegas 2010 when it came out. I replayed it again in 2014. Played it to Fallout 4 in 2015, and I worked my way through the story, and then put it down. And didn't really think about it again for a while. And then I got a gaming PC in 2020, and then I downloaded Fallout 4, just fell in love with mods, and it is miles better from a shooter standpoint from Fallout 3 and New Vegas. It is just a totally different style of game. You know what I mean? Like when you compare Fallout 4's gameplay to Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, it feels different, even though it's closer to those games than pretty much anything else. But even Fallout 3 compared to Fallout 2 is just miles different. As far as a sequel goes, all the mechanics that are introduced in Fallout 3, the ones that do transfer over to Fallout 4, are just better. It's a fantastic game, and I've just recently fallen in love with the Fallout series again, and maybe it's a recency bias, I don't know. But as of this moment right now, Fallout 4 is the perfect sequel.
I'm glad you guys have said that, because the majority of people say it's the worst sequel besides 76, which
Fallout 4?
isn't really a sequel.
People on Fallout 4?
Oh, yeah.
People don't like Fallout 4.
Heard
Nobody
a
likes
bad
it.
thing about Fallout 4.
I've never really heard anybody say anything good about it until you
I've
guys.
only a couple handfuls, but anybody I've talked to who has played Fallout 4 loves it.
People are like, well, New Vegas is the best and everything else. If it's not New Vegas, it sucks.
That's
just what people
tunnel
say.
Vision.
That's
But-
what people say.
So,
Like, they don't like Fallout 3 because it's not New Vegas. They don't like Fallout 1 because it's not New Vegas. They don't like Fallout 2 because it's not New Vegas.
Yeah.
They don't like Fallout Tactics because it sucks. They don't like Fallout 4 because it's not New Vegas. They don't like 76 because
that's a
it
shame,
sucks.
because Fallout 4 is an absolute gem.
I'm so glad I'm not the only one who thinks so. I wish I would have put it on my list.
I don't know how to explain it. It's just a great game. Like, it's a great game. It's like what you like about Skyrim and what you like about Fallout together. You know what I mean? It's like the gameplay of Skyrim. It feels like Skyrim in the Fallout world.
So you said you don't know how to explain it, but like for me, like would you say out of all the Fallout games that you could pick one to play for the rest of your life, only one? Would Fallout 4 be the one?
I haven't played 76 yet, so I don't know.
Okay, so we'll exclude 76. so-
Okay, so if we don't talk about 76, Fallout 4 will be.
Okay, then yeah, that's you know.
There you go.
But
But that's because I have it on PC and I have mods and I can always constantly make it a different game. I don't have Fallout 3 and New Vegas on PC. What you got, bud?
so my number one pick for video game sequels is also an Elder Scrolls game, but not the one that most people pick. I went with Oblivion. For me, the reason that Oblivion stands the test of time, much like Skyrim, but honestly more in my opinion, is because Oblivion took Morrowind, which was kind of ahead of its time anyways, and just drastically improved on everything in it. From your leveling system, to characters and enemies in the game, to the map, to the combat system, everything about it was just top tier. Now, Morrowind was released in 2002, and then Oblivion was released in 2006, so only 4 years apart, but you would think it's light years because of how much it's improved. And people talk about how Skyrim stands the test of time because it's 10 years old and still gets played, but Oblivion is, what, 16 years old now, also still gets played. The modding community is not as big if you're not a PC gamer. You can get mods for it. I had mods for it on my PC, but Oblivion is not a game I've ever felt like I needed to alter or change or even add mods to, because there's so much. I feel like the DLCs in Oblivion are also superior. From the Knights of the Nine to there's numerous Oblivion gates that you can enter, which is almost like a map inside the map, and the Daedric quests where you can interact with all the Daedric lords, and I feel like it's just much more in depth than the Daedric quests were in Skyrim, in my opinion. It's just, I'm not saying Skyrim's bad at all, obviously it's not, but Oblivion in the Elder Scrolls series, I feel like that is kind of the focal point for that series, and it improved drastically on Morrowind and the games that came before it. And I feel like if Oblivion hadn't been as successful as it was, there would not be Skyrim. It's just the lore, the stories, any of the main characters to some of the side characters, all the cities, the way that they differed, the way that the characters in them differed. It was just, even stuff like the armor and the weapons, and it was such a top tier game that's why I feel like it's the #1 game sequel of any game sequel to ever game sequel.
That AI was dog though.
So your AI is dog shit. But
it's a Bethesda game, so NPCs are idiots anyway in Bethesda games.
no, yeah, it's just, I feel like they didn't improve on it much in Skyrim. No. Flip a guy with an arrow from 10 feet away and then squat and he loses you. Must have been the wind. Big part of me wanted to go with Skyrim here, but like I was kind of pointing out with Showtime with his feelings for Fallout, I feel like when it comes to sequels, the best sequels for people have to be the one that you look at in the series, and if you could only pick one game from that entire, whatever it is, trilogy, foragy, quintuplet, what is it?
I don't even know.
I don't even know.
Saga.
Whatever comes up, yeah, that's it. If you had to pick a game from any game series that you could just play that one, that would be the top sequel for you. And for me, it's Oblivion, because if I had to pick any one game in all of Elder Scrolls, the entire Elder Scrolls series to pick, it would just be Oblivion. I could play that game as the only game for the rest of my life and probably be okay, really. So, but that's my #1.
No, it's a solid pick. It's an excellent game. I mean, there you go.
Classic dirt sheet.
It's like the equivalent of a mic drop.
But yeah, no, it's a solid game. I could still go back and play it. Now, I would almost say if I had to pick Oblivion and unmodded Skyrim and just choose one, maybe Oblivion would win out. But I think that will do it, unless we have any more final thoughts.
Honorable mentions!
There are so many good sequels out there that we didn't mention that we could have. Like the Grand Theft Auto games.
Honorable mention.
No.
That's an honorable mention.
No.
You're doing honorable mentions right now.
No.
You are what you hate.
No. All the Mortal Kombat games and how they've improved over the years, all the Grand Theft Auto games and how they've gotten more ludicrous and crazy over the years. There's so many great games out there that we didn't even touch that could be in future lists. I might change the way I feel about my list tomorrow. We might do this again. Because there's just so many out there that could be brought forward in the future.
All right, so I think that's all for our picks, our thoughts on our favorite game sequels. Like he said, I mean, this is not a definitive list. It's not absolute. It could change in a day, in a week, for anybody. But that's the beauty of video games is, you know, it's just so extensive that there's just so much to choose from. But other than that, that's all we got for today. Do the normal YouTube stuff, like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff. And until we see you on the Spoiler Alert Network again, stay tuned and stay dedicated.
I just recycle the same jokes over and over again. My favorite one is where I look in the mirror.
Does EA make... EA doesn't make 2K, do they?
No.
No. Good job. Good job saying that. It's okay, Brad's gonna cut it out anyway.
I just want to sleep forever.
Crawl into a hole. I just f***ed up crawl into a hole and said crawl into a hole.
My favorite, my top,
And carried on.
You dying?
A fucking bug just flew into my mouth. I just swallowed a gnat.
I had one of those flying in front of my face earlier.
Well, I ate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But overall, I think Skyrim's still my favorite out of the Skyrim, or out of the
Skyrim.
Skyrim.
1, 2, 3, and 4.
Everything is Skyrim.
Skyrim scrolls Skyrim. Sequels.
Mass Effect 1, 2, 3, Skyrim 1, 2, 3, 4, or Elder Scrolls 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Skyrim 1, Skyrim Effect 3. Skyrim out 4.
Skyrim 3, Tokyo
What-
Drift. that also deserve love, but wow. You.
I actually, at this point, I have played the first Red Dead.
I was gonna stab you.
Yeah.
I was about to stab you.
I
Brad stabbed you once in the top 5. Do you remember that?
Yes, the first one.
The first.